Hey everyone, this is SG DeVries. Today we are going to look at the second toy in my Big Toy series. This is the Big Truck, and there's a lot of detail on this, a lot of separate moving parts and mechanical systems, and I'd love to show them all to you. In order to show you all the features of this model, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off this dump bucket. Now there's just a couple of wooden pins that hold that in place, and we'll put it on again later so when we test out the dumping motion, but it's easier to see some of the features without that on. Now the first thing we're going to look at is the steering system. There are several components of that steering system, first of which, I'm going to tip this up here and spin the wheels, and you can see that the front wheels have roller bearings in them. You can see the dowels in there. Those ride on a nice big hub. And I did that for stability because you get some twisting motion when you're driving on an angle, and I wanted the big hub for stability. Second, let's turn it a second here. You can see on the inside is a steering rack. That is a geared steering rack. Let's see if we can get the right angle so you can see it. The steering runs on, there is a steering wheel in the back of the machine, and there is a second steering wheel in the front of the machine. Now those are both connected. If I turn the back steering wheel, you can see that the front steering wheel is turning. And if I turn, of course, the front one, then the back one is also turning. Now I did that because, of course, if you're driving, you want to be able to steer it. However, if you're also driving backwards, ready to dump the dump bucket, you also need to be able to steer exactly where you're going. Those two are connected together. There is a series of gears that is connected on the rear steering wheel and a universal joint that's underneath here that you really can't see, unfortunately. But that's all connects in one steering column together, so they both operate the same. And I like the way that turned out. The second mechanical system I want to show you is the engine and drivetrain system. Now, way back from the beginning of this model, I wanted to have a moving engine on it. I didn't know how many cylinders or how exactly I was going to do it, but it was one of those initial design things that absolutely had to have, and that was a moving engine. So I eventually decided, let's try to do it like I do it on an actual car. And so you can see in the back here, if we turn this, that is a working differential, complete with wooden gears, which allows me to turn one of the rear wheels in one direction and the other one in the other direction at the same time. Of course, they can also both move forward if you're driving or backwards. But like a car, when you need to have the ability for wheels to spin at different speeds when you're turning a corner, the same thing we can do on this truck. If we turn it upside down, you can see that differential, the big gear, turns this gear, which spins this long drive shaft, which runs the length of the machine. Now let's see if we can see that gear spinning. There we go. Those gears and that drive shaft power the engine. Now in the front here, you can see on either side, you've got these holes coming up through the operation deck here. That is 4 piston holes on each side with 2 crankshafts. Now I'm going to drive this back and forth a little bit and see if we can see those pistons moving. You can probably hear them better than you can see them, but you can see them in there. The second look for those pistons, let's turn the front wheels to the side here. And we will see underneath, if you look in here, is actually the crankshafts. Let's see if I can see those moving. There we go. Now those are just some offset dowels mounted on an axle, which turns on, there's a small wooden chain in there. Maybe you can see that moving too. That crankshaft along the bottom turns a sprocket, which turns the chain, which turns the crankshaft, which moves the pistons up and down, which honestly, I think it looks really cool. Sounds even better. Let's take a listen to that. Okay. The third mechanical system on here is the dump mechanism. And I decided that similar to where I needed the steering wheel in the front for the steering mechanism when I backed up, if you're backing up to dump this, you really need to be able to control the dump mechanism from the front. So if we turn this, we can see there's this sort of bumper-like looking apparatus up here, which is actually the lever. This entire thing moves to dump. Now we'll turn it on its side here so you can see that a little better. And when you lift the lever up, the pistons extend and dump the bucket. This operates, we'll turn it like this again. You can see these 2 big chains in here. Those are chains made completely out of wood. There's actually no glue on them. They're just press fit. So I lift the lever, it turns these big sprockets. Those sprockets, let's turn it up on its side, turn this system of gears down here. Let's watch that again. And those extend the pistons. Now if you take a close look, there is a gear, a rat gear on that piston, because I wanted the pistons to do the actual work of lifting. And so by lifting this handle and turning those gears, that turns this other gear which extends the piston rack. So your pistons on here are doing the actual work of lifting. Now I'm going to put the bucket back on here a second so we can just take a look at it. Dumping with the bucket here. Make sure I get that positioned right. There we go. And so we lift it up and it dumps. It'll actually stay up. There's enough friction in the system that it won't come crashing down on little fingers, which is kind of important to me. I let my kids play with this. You might, if you build one, you might not, but that's up to you. And there you have it. My favorite design feature, which you might be able to see in the back there, is having a rear steering wheel. I had to be able to have it move out of the way when you dumped. And so, let's just pop that up. The gears on there for the rear steering wheel are actually mounted on the same axle as the dump rotation. So, when you dump, the rear steering wheel moves out of the way. Just a little thing, but I happen to really like it. I think it's pretty cool. So that is the big truck. If you are interested in building one of these yourself, I really like designing toys and writing instructions for them. So like my bulldozer model, I also designed a manual for this. That manual is about 300 pages long. It has scale drawings of every single part on this model, all the way from the very first frame beam down, to the last little detail pieces that you've got on the dump bucket. Scale drawings of all the parts, all laid out in a very systematic approach, step by step. There's over 600 photographs that will take you through the entire construction process, so you never have to wonder what you're supposed to do next. Now, even with that much detail, I will tell you this is not an easy build. If you're just starting out in woodworking and think, wow, this looks great, I mean, first of all, thanks for thinking it looks great, but don't try it. Wait till you have a little bit more experience. You'll have to build a lot of small parts for this. There's about 1,500 parts in here altogether, and there's a lot of chain parts, little gears. However, it's not as hard as you might think. Gears and chains sound really difficult when you look at them and you look at a model like this, but even something as complex as this is really, it's a lot of very simple parts just put together in the right way. And so there is no one part on here that is really excessively difficult to build if you have some woodworking experience and some tools. So that being said, I hope you enjoyed the model, and if you're interested, the book is available on Amazon. Thanks for watching.